Thank you, Annette. That was awesome. Hello and welcome to the online Sunday service of the Humboldt Unitarian Universalist Fellowship that we like to call HUF. My name is Scarlett Trippsmith and I will be your technical liaison for today. And if this is your first time joining us, we are so happy you found us. Please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat to everyone. We welcome you. Now, we know that you come from different places, different religions, different beliefs, different backgrounds, but we hope that you find comfort and connection here and challenge, and most of all, hope for love. Now, as you can see, you are muted. However, later in the service, we will be breaking out into some soul-searching breakout rooms where you will be able to converse with your community. And also, please stick around after the service for our virtual coffee hour. We ask that if you feel comfortable, please keep your cameras turned on so we can see all of your beautiful faces. During these times when we cannot safely meet together, these online services are our way of connecting and continuing to keep our mission alive in our own world. Today, we have Lezley Troxell taking our joys, sorrows, and celebrations. So if you feel called, please send them to Lezley Troxell today. And with that, we are glad you're here and joining us and engaging in the work through embracing diversity and empowering those connections. Because of this, today we acknowledge and honor the land on which we live that is traditional home of the Wiyot people. We are committed for fighting for the worth and dignity of every person in our community and out. And we want to remind ourselves that we must put our words and our principles into action for the justice of the common good. And here is an affirmation of hope from Dr. Loretta Williams, who served the first who served as the UUA Director of Social Responsibility from 1980 to 1989. And you will be able to see it in your chat, so please recite it along with me, everybody. So, we bear the dreams and affirm that a new vision of hope is emerging. We pledge to work for the community in which justice will be actively present. We affirm that there is struggle ahead, and yet ahead. Sorry, thought I heard something.
Yeah, we know.
What's wrong? David, is there something wrong? Oh,
no.
Okay. Never mind. Thank you. We welcome and thank you for sharing with our presence today. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce David Marshak for our chalice lighting and aspiration. Take it away, David.
Thank you, Scarlett. So I have the honor of lighting the chalice today. And these are some words from Melanie Davis called A Spark for Hope. If ever there were a time for a candle in the darkness, this would be it. Using a spark of hope, kindle the flame of love, ignite the light of peace, and feed the flame of justice. So if you would join me in reciting our aspiration, and if Scarlett would put the slide up, please. May love be the spirit of this fellowship. May the quest for truth be its sacrament, and service be its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge
and freedom, and to help one another in fellowship. This is our aspiration.
Try again. So I'd like to draw your attention to the weekly email that Bridget sends out on Friday, which lists many activities and opportunities for engagement with each other. And next we will hear a song, Give Us Hope, sung by the Bay Area Unitarian Universalist Church Choir, and you'll find the words in the chat.
Unfortunately, I'm not able to hear what's going on, so I think I'm supposed to speak now. So ours is a welcoming community where we find connection, a spiritual community where we find meaning. Ours is a sharing community where our joys are amplified, a caring community where our sorrows are lessened. We take this moment to reflect on our joys and our sorrows and acknowledge the mutual support of our community. So I'm going to look and see if there were any chats where people wanted to leave a stone. And I don't see one, not one. That's pretty amazing. Someone said, oh, seriously? Oh, geez. So that's wild. So I'm going to leave
there are some, just look at it where it says everyone. I think they just might have not sent it directly to you.
Okay, I will look. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, all right. So there's warmest wishes to Sue Mossman for her birthday tomorrow. So we're going to give her a beautiful round stone here and place it in the water. And then Beverly Morgan Lewis says, today is my birthday, and happy birthday tomorrow to Sue Lee Mossman and all the other January babies. So we need something big and beautiful. This little desert rose, we'll do that one for all the January babies. Thank you to Nancy Session, Beverly Morgan Lewis, Sina Marino, Debbie Cooper, Sylvia Shaw, and Bertie Welty for helping to hold the HUUF and Black Lives Matter banners in Eureka yesterday from noon until 1:30. Thank you so, so much. So another stone for those guys. Drop a stone. This is from Bertie, and it says, drop a stone for mobilizing hope, peace, and civility. This is from Berta and Joe. Here we go. That was a clear stone for clarity. There's one from Kate McLean to everyone saying, I hope that Scarlett is feeling better. Me too. Then something from Chip. Spoke with Judith Berry at Granada Rehab twice this past week. She says she is doing fine. I can tell that she would like a resumption of visiting opportunities. Granada staff told me that Nancy Cook is well, as is John Hales, who has quit smoking, by the way. So blessings to those people, all of them. And then there is one, let's see. Oh, and I think that might be all of them. Oh, wait a minute, hold on. Melanie Gurney turned 90. Oh, where did it go? She turned 90. Oh, let's go. Let's see, where did it go? It disappeared. Hold on. Dun, dun, dun. There's a lot of these today. Here she is. She turned 90 on Friday. Happy birthday, Mom. And then we have a Scarlett came home for Christmas and is feeling better. We are so grateful to those who supported her. And that is from Kim. And then we have welcome to Nancy Session, who joined us yesterday at 4th and V Streets. And that's from Beverly Morgan Lewis. Then we have one from Joanne Huffman, thinking of Stephen Sontan, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, who is having his stories accepted for publication. That is fantastic news. Let's see. Then we have one from Debbie, who says, feeling gratitude for the hardworking people of Huff that keep our beloved choo-choo fellowship chugging up that mountain. There we go. And then, oh, don't forget the stone. And then we have something, nope, that's, okay, dun, 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 little Gaza. Scott Sattler is in the hospital. This is from Susan Penn. So let's be thinking about him. Healing golden light surrounded by my friend Debbie. Let's see, and then this is from, oh, I already read this one, I think, about Granada, Scott Sattler, and welcome to Nancy. I think that's all of them. Please let me know if I missed somebody. So may we remember those who have spoken, those they have named, and those we hold in silence in our hearts. So now we go to a moment of silence with Scarlett. So David Marshak is going to share with us what has most inspired hope for him in the past year. So David.
Thank you, Lezley. Given the events of the past week and the current intensity of the COVID pandemic in California and here in Humboldt, this may feel like a challenging time to talk about hope. But just as the candle in the darkness, it may be the time that we most need to feel hope and see that there is hope for a better world in the future. What's inspired me the most over the last couple of years are young people, people in their teens, who have begun to contribute to their societies right now in their lives. And so I'm going to introduce you to some of these folks. I'm sure you'll be familiar with some. And so my first introduction needs no introduction. I'm sure you're all familiar with Greta. And what I would say about Greta is that she is both unique, obviously, and at the same time, not unique. So for example, Joshua Wong, who some of you may know about, started when he was 14 years old as a democracy activist in Hong Kong and was a key leader in the pro-democracy activities in 2014, the so-called umbrella activity, if you remember that, and has continued. And unfortunately, the Chinese government has arrested and imprisoned him right now. But I don't believe that this is the last that we will hear from Mr. Wong. But he began at the age of 14. The next youth that I want to introduce you to is a young woman in Bangladesh who began at the age of 13. Her mother was a drama teacher and organized theater groups. And she, at the age of 13, engaged in recruiting street children, quote unquote, untouchables, into her drama group. And she said, I've been able to mobilize about 40 children and incorporate them in my theater group. My friends and I are practicing theater with these children and informing them about their rights and about how to stay healthy. Joshua Williams lives in Florida, and the age that you see on the screen is the age that they began their activism. Created a program called Joshua's Heart, which is a food distribution program in South Florida. And his program has distributed over 650,000 pounds of food over several years. And when he realized that some of the folks who received the food had limited cooking skills, he started a cooking skills program. Peyton Klein, at the age of 15, became aware that there were students in her high school in Pennsylvania for whom English was a second language. And she became aware that she had assumptions about them that were incorrect or limited. And so she started a program called the Global Minds Initiative, for which she's raised several $100,000. And it's a program for youth, by youth, pairing native speakers with ESL students to do homework together and engage in a variety of activities, essentially get to know each other and transcend the limitations of ignorance. Boyan Slot is someone you may have heard of. He is from the Netherlands, and as recently as last year, he had raised hundreds of millions of dollars to construct a device which was out in the Pacific trying to collect plastic waste. And while the wing that they built both worked and didn't work in its first incarnation, he's now rebuilt it and is trying again to see how it works in the North Sea. So this is something that, you know, many people said couldn't be done. We couldn't collect this plastic. And yet here he was working on it, because at the age of 16, He thought somebody should be able to do this. Ashika Saxena, who lives not that far from us, invented something called the Hemacam. Oh, actually, she's in Washington State, sorry. Which is a machine learning web app that can employ any smartphone to diagnose sickle cell disease with 95% accuracy when combined with a 3D printed microscope that attaches to a smartphone camera. So these technologies are much, much cheaper than what we commonly use for this kind of detection, and therefore they can be used in societies that can't afford the kind of technology that we have in the United States or in the West. Megan Warren became aware that she had many folks in her school, students in her school, who didn't have any books. Her mom is a librarian. You can see her surrounded by books. So she started an organization called Books for Bedtime that's gathered more than 70,000 books in her hometown and distributed them to families and to other students in her school. Ayesha Log, who does live in California, in Santa Clara, created a type of DNA test that can be used to test whether someone has a deadly food allergy or whether someone has just an inconvenient but not life-threatening sensitivity. And I like his quote a great deal. He said, "My thinking was, with the technology we have out there, why is there not something better?" Leah Harrell is a climate activist, and she began her activism at 15, and she founded the Minnetonka Climate Initiative. She's a member of the Youth Environmental Activists in Minnesota, and has participated in introducing a Minnesota Green New Deal bill in the Minnesota legislature. Malcolm Asher founded an organization called Art Pass. He was volunteering in a local oncology clinic and found that the children there were both scared and bored. And so he decided to give them art supplies to engage with while they were waiting for their treatment or waiting to heal. And he found that this made a tremendous difference for the children that he was volunteering with. So he founded an organization. It's a youth-led international nonprofit that seeks to remold and reimagine how kids across the world experience and perceive the hospital through the power of art. A couple more. Mahika Halpidi founded Ayana International, which is an organization that holds youth innovation labs to train youth to become leaders in their communities. And they've worked with 10 groups of change makers across Kenya, Tanzania, Cameroon, and Rwanda. And the next slide, if you would, Scarlett. I won't read it to you, you can read it, but this is her orientation to the work that she began in her teens and now has continued into her early 20s. And I'll give you a minute to read this. This is the kind of combination that I see in these young folk, these youth, which is both the idealism of youth, but the qualities of practical engagement with the world, with the society they live in, with the world today, and the sense that even though they may be 14 or 16 or 18, that there's really no need for them to wait until some later date when they're somehow better prepared. So Scarlett, if you could go on. Jerome Foster started an online publication called The Climate Reporter, and this has grown into an environmental news organization that has people have been reading from all over the world. And Jerome has gone on to college and continued to develop as a journalist. Haley Thomas became the youngest certified health coach in the United States. I'll wait till the slide comes up. And founded an organization, Healthy, Active, Positive, Purposeful Youth, to provide affordable culinary education to youth in malnourished communities. Taft Foley III created a mobile COVID-19 testing lab. So here he is, he's an 18-year-old. He went out and figured out how to create a mobile testing lab. He's already trained as an EMT at 18 and created this lab where they're averaging 30, 35 tests a day. Anika Cherbrolu invented the use of an in silico methodology to develop a lead molecule. And if you'll give me an hour later, I'll explain to you what that is, that can bind to the spike protein of the SARS-CoV-2 virus. So she was doing this research, again, as a 14-year-old, looking at the capacity for influenza, but then switched the research to SARS when SARS, to COVID when COVID got going earlier last year. Rohan Suri created the world's most inexpensive and accurate concussion test using a smartphone and a headset to diagnose eye tracking movements. And this has actually begun to be used a lot throughout the world. Eddie Binford Ross engaged as a high school journalist in the activities in Portland, the demonstrations in Portland this past summer, and published photos and videos online that were then carried in media all over the world because they provided access to some of the best reporting that was done during all of that demonstration and so on. Peyton Robertson began inventing when he was 8, and he has a whole list of inventions. The one that I'll note is that he invented a sandless sandbag, which is both lighter than conventional sandbags and reusable. Hannah Herbst created an ocean energy probe prototype. So the idea would be that this is a technology for generating electricity from ocean currents. And finally, Gabriel Mesa began developing a biodegradable carbon battery at the age of 15. So if I had another 10 minutes, I could introduce you to another 20 youths and many more. But what I wanted to share with you is this sense of enormous potential that the youth of the world are stepping up now. They're not waiting until some later date when they're accepted. And as I say, I find this tremendously helpful and hopeful. So now I'll pass it back to Lezley.
That is hopeful. It is really amazing what our youth is capable of doing and what they do. And it is really nice to hear about these 20 people and know that there's 20 more and probably 20 more and probably 20 more. So I have a confession to make. I spent a good deal of time last week writing about hope, mostly with regards to Black Lives Matter and the events 2020 and the political affairs of these times. I had my thoughts on hope all lined up like ducks all in a row, and then the assault on the Capitol happened on Wednesday. So I felt compelled to rewrite. And when I was nearly finished, I realized I was writing for the wrong presentation. Instead of a talk on hope, I had written my thoughts for a sermon that is scheduled for February 21st called What Stands in the Way of Creating Beloved Community. So back to the computer. Not surprising. It is actually very difficult to find non-religious material about hope. So I had to depend upon my own abilities to communicate what hope is and what our commitment to the future is. This was not an easy task, and I had to admit, after the events of the 6th, I felt hopeless. What began as a day of protests in Washington, D.C., soon turned deadly as tens of thousands of Trump supporters stormed the Capitol building, pushing past metal barricades and security police, inciting violence. They did this with the encouragement of Trump in an attempt to stop the peaceful transition of power to President-elect Joe Biden, while falsely asserting that the election had been stolen. 5 people have died as a result of the conflict. Too few have been arrested. Meanwhile, in downtown Atlanta, maybe hundreds gathered to protest the failure to charge the police officer that shot and paralyzed Jacob Blake. 22 were arrested. This country criminalizes Black grief and celebrates white rage, coddles it, protects it. It is difficult for me to be hopeful. It is okay to be angry and confused. There is nothing normal about sitting in the backwash of white supremacist coup in the middle of a pandemic. So many people did not see this coming, yet many people did. They were very much aware of the 7 million plus that voted for Trump, crawling out from beneath their rocks with the blessings of their man. And then there was me. I would not believe and still don't believe things will be okay until after, way after 1/21/21. And even then, I am not confident. I've always been the one to believe behind every cloud is another cloud. Things will not return to normal. Things should not return to normal. The painful images of this week remain seared in our minds, but they will not and should not be unseen, precisely because they help us look more carefully at what peers back at us from our national reflection. However, it is too much of an insult to our bodies and our minds with so much despair. We are not designed to take in so much. We are analog creatures in a digital world. I suggest all of us limit our gaze on media to once a day for an hour at the very most. This, I promise, will keep you sane. It will make room for hope. Once it is acknowledged, it is best you do not feed yourself a constant diet of despair. Semantics. Authors of a survey about hope and optimism concluded that hope is distinct from optimism by being an emotion representing more important but less likely outcomes and by affording less personal control. When people do have a high degree of control, they may no longer need to be just hopeful, but can be optimistic because the outcome is now obtainable. The Oxford Dictionary describes hope as the expectation of something desired, desire combined with expectation. I think of expectation as something felt owed, as in privilege, but that's a whole other service. The little engine that could because he thought he could make it up the mountain. Just like a CEO is optimistic her company will be successful. Hopeful doesn't cut it in the world of small trains making it up big mountains or executives turning a profit, but optimism does. Optimism gives you power. But hope is about, oh man, when I get to the front of the line, I hope they still have seats left. You must hope because there is not much you can do to change the outcome. But you don't give up. You still believe. Then there are those who think just the opposite results of the survey, that optimism is for those afraid to be hopeful. And expectation, that's the little engine that could, expecting dad to come up behind him and give him a shove. Reverend Victoria Safford, the minister of White Bear United Universalist Church in Matomidi, Minnesota, is the author of the book Walking Toward Morning. She states, our mission is to plant ourselves at the gates of hope. not the prudent gates of optimism, which are somewhat narrower, nor the stalwart boring gates of common sense, nor the strident gates of self-righteousness, which creak on shrill and angry hinges, nor the cheerful, flimsy garden gate of, well, everything's just going to be all right, but a very different, sometimes lonely place, the place of truth-telling about our own soul first of all and its condition, the place of resistance and defiance, the place of ground from which you see the world as it is and as it can be. It might be as it will be, the place from which you glimpse not only the struggle, but the joy in the struggle. We stand there beckoning and calling, telling people what we are seeing, asking people what they see. So how do we move forward with hope after a coup? I mean, we're experiencing, pretty unbelievable. So how do we move on with hope? This is from former First Lady Michelle Obama's statement, which is given on Thursday, the 7th. Quote, seeing the gulf between the responses to yesterday's riot and this summer's peaceful protests and the larger movement for racial justice is just so painful. It hurts. And I cannot think about moving on or turning the page until we reckon with the reality of what we saw yesterday on Wednesday. True progress will be possible only once we acknowledge that this disconnect exists and take steps to repair it. And also means coming to grips with the reality that millions, 7+ millions, voted for a man obviously willing to burn our democracy down for his own ego. End quote. She goes on to say, thankfully, even in the darkness, there are glimmers of hope. It is something I imagine Reverend Warnock has preached about before, and I am still heartened beyond belief that he is headed to Washington. I am glad his fellow Georgian John Ossoff is too, and that they together will help get control of Congress, back to the only party that's shown that it can put our democracy above its own short-term political fortunes. She says, I pray that every American, especially those who disagree with them, will give our new Congress, President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Harris, a chance to lead us in a better direction. Hope is what is needed in these times. This comes from Parker J. Palmer, founder and senior partner emeritus of the Center for Courage and Renewal. He writes, quote, of the virtues of hope is of all the virtues, hope is the one that is most needed in this time. When people ask me how I stay hopeful in an era of widespread darkness, I answer simply, hope keeps me alive and creatively engaged in the world. When privileged people like me choose hopelessness over hope, it is not a reflection of the state of the world, it is a reflection of the state of our souls. I need to read that again. When privileged people like me choose hopelessness over hope, it is a choice, by the way. It is not a reflection of the state of the world. It is a reflection of the state of our souls. If I were to choose hope and turn to cynicism, what would I do? Sit in a corner, stare at the wall, suck my thumb? When people like me allow ourselves to become hopeless, while there is so much we can do for those who are truly suffering, we need to remind ourselves that opting out is not a fit way for a grown-up to live, end quote. I have come to believe, just in the short time of writing this and thinking about it, that hope implies belief. Hope implies joy. It implies belonging. Hope can be found between the tenor of laughter of friends or the giggle of a baby. Hope is on the walls of a gallery and in the hall of a museum. Hope is on the wings of an egret about to take flight. It is on the strings of a symphony and in the hands of a buckster playing drums like nobody's business on a 5-gallon bucket on a street corner of any given city. It is the reason we search the stars. It is the reason we create. It is in my heart and in my soul. In writing these words, I am no longer hopeless. In closing, I would like to share this wonderful and very well-known poem by Maya Angelou. It is so incredibly relevant at this time. Still I Rise by Maya Angelou. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still like dust I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why you beset with gloom? 'Cause I walk like I've got oil wells pumping in my living room. Just like moons, like suns, with the certainty of tides, just like hope springing high, still I'll rise. Do you want to see me broken, bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling like teardrops, weakened my soulful cries? Does my haughtiness offend you? Don't take it awful hard, 'cause I laugh like I've got gold mines digging in my backyard. You may shoot me with your words. You may cut me with your eyes. You may kill me with your hatefulness, but still like air, I'll rise. Does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I've got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the huts of history's shame, I rise. Up from the past that's rooted in pain, I rise. I'm a black ocean leaping and wide, welling and swelling, I bear in the tide, leaving behind nights of terror and fear. I rise into a daybreak that's wonderfully clear. I rise, bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise. So David and I hoped that we could break out in rooms so that we could have an opportunity to explore our own evidence, our own experiences of hope now in these days. So we have asked Scarlett to put you into breakout rooms of 5 or 6 people and invite you to share with one another what brings you hope today. Scarlett? So, Scarlett, I'm going to do the offertory introduction. We know that our financial contributions to this congregation come from sacrifice and hard work. We are so grateful for this and commit together to ensure the funds that we gather collectively do a greater good for ourselves and for our world than they would have done alone. May there be an offering to sustain and grow the life and mission of this congregation. May we give in love and in hope. Annette, you have a piece for us. So we've never done this before, I don't think. So David and I are going to try to do a responsive reading. I think that Charlotte might have the words up in the chat. I'm not positive. So we'll wait till she does, maybe. And then everybody can read along. Oh, there it is, Hope Rises. All right. So David, you begin.
So this is a piece called Hope Rises, written by John Burens and Rebecca Parker. Hope rises.
It rises from the heart of life, here and now, beating with joy and sorrow.
Hope longs.
It longs for good to be affirmed, for justice and love to prevail, for suffering to be alleviated, and for life to flourish in peace.
Hope remembers.
It remembers the dreams of those who have gone before and reaches for connection with them across the boundary of death.
Hope acts.
It acts to bless, to protest, and to repair.
So our
It's
closing words for extinguishing the chalice. And before I do this, Lezley, I want to thank you for all of us, for your words today, for the truth and the honesty and the inspiration. Thank you. So this is a piece from Kevin Jago called Hope Continues, so I can get this up high enough. When the candle dims, the wax almost spent, the light turns amber like a sunset. Still it provides light, still it provides heat, still it can kindle new flame and pass its glow on and contribute to new illumination. When sunsets turn to new days, when seasons transform all, when the candle dims, all is not lost. Hope continues, uncertain and true, like candlelight, ready to spark again. All is not lost.
now, if you'd like to all join me, please go to your gallery view. Reach your hands across the screen so we can be in energy and in space together. And please sing along with me as we sing Go From Here in Peace. Go from here in peace, go in love. Go from here in peace, go in love. Go from here in peace, go in love. In love, go in peace. Shalom, salam alaikum, blessed be. And please stick around for our virtual coffee hour so we can all see your gorgeous faces. Here we have shalom, salam alaikum.